Hey everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. In this one, I'm turning coffee stirrers into this sacrificial blade. Let's get to the build. Okay, so I have a lot of these coffee stirrers. What I do is to get 2 stirrers every time I get a coffee. I don't know why, but that's a habit I developed over the past years. And once people in my work realized this and knew that I do stuff with these, they started to bring these in like crowds carrying shiny trinkets by your window. Anyway, I decided to make something for the most contributing crowd out there, and here we are. I was going to make a simple short sword or a Roman gladius so he can play with it. But then I decided to make it a bit more interesting and chose a crysknife or dagger type of something. What I did was basically to glue them in a way to make one big wooden slab that I can use as a base. I measured the middle and the end sections, then roughly sketched the curves on it. Then re-ran over the previous lines with a marker. For this project I bought the thinnest saw blades I could find, or whatever they're called. Put it on the hacksaw and started cutting off the slab. Since I didn't glue it properly, there were some pieces getting ripped or broken. I glued them right away. The super glue I bought this time, probably the reason for it. It didn't smell of quality. Once I had the shape of the blade ready, I started to smooth the edges, round the ends, and get it evenly thinned as much as possible. As usual, this is the dirtiest job of it. The wood dust gets in everywhere and I have to do a thorough cleaning right after it. And since it's such a hustle, I always try to get this part done in one sitting so I don't have to clean the entire room a second or a third time. Although the wood dust is a great way to make ground floor for my Dharma projects, so I try to save as much as possible from such projects like this one. Once I'm done with shaping the blade, I fill the gaps, holes and crevices with baking soda and CA glue combination. Also, at this point we lose the whether good or bad aesthetics of the coffee stirrers, and no one would believe this was once a bunch of wooden sticks glued together that looks like a dagger. But I'm not going for that look. Instead, want this to look like a bit of a worn down piece of metal. After this, I apply baking soda once more, but this time to add the worn down metallic surface effect. With this one, I sand it by hand using sanding sponges. I refine the supposedly cutting edges. It obviously wouldn't cut anything, but I have a feeling that it would do the stabbing job fine. Next, I work on the hilt of this. I used a leftover piece of wood from my scrap wood bin. I measured it according to the height of the blade. This had a diagonal cut and I could work to shape that later on. And for the handle, I'm using this driftwood I picked up from a beach this summer. It looks like witchy, if you know what I mean, with the uneven shape and broken up end, so I found it to be perfect handle for this sacrificial like dagger. In order to attach them, I drilled the necessary holes on each piece. Stuck and glued a chopstick into the blade and then dry fitted the pieces. Next, I gave some curves to the hilt. There wasn't that many options other than to round up the bottom edges and grind off the top corners of it. After the hilt, I decided to carve some lines on the handle. Since I didn't use leather strips to make it look like a knife handle, I thought this would be a nice detail, especially after the paint job. The driftwood was soft, carving was extremely easy and enjoyable. I filed the lines and sanded off the chipped spots for a smoother finish. Once I was done with these parts, I glued them together and completed the knife. Up until this point, I always kept on thinking of adding some witchy detail over this and challenged myself to sculpt a snake wrapped around it. I never attempted a serious sculpting, so this was somewhat confusing yet interesting for me. Basically, I rolled enough aluminum foil, attached the head bits, and glued them together. Then covered it up with air drying clay. I always hate how clay doesn't hold on to the foil on the first layer. But next troublesome process was to position the snake on the dagger itself. I had to roll the snake into the shape I wanted while trying to keep the clay covering it getting ripped as less as possible. I can't say I'm good at this to be honest, but I got the job done once I managed to get it glued on the dagger. Smoothened the torn sections with wet brush strokes before it got really dry. Next day, I started to bulk up its body. You can notice here how the head ended up being out of proportion compared to the body. And the next day, I sanded off the uneven parts as much as possible, so I could keep on adding more to its body. I basically kept on cutting off rectangular layers of clay and kept adding them over it, making sure to blend each section with the other. Also, at this point, the head started to make sense and I started seeing how it should look like, so I added pieces there. Once this dried, I sanded off the parts that didn't make much sense in regards to thickness and started to give some definitive shapes. Here you can see through the foil. I failed to cover it successfully. I didn't care about it all that much since majority of this will be covered with scales. For its scales, I thought of carving with Dremel bits, but I didn't trust my precision all that much. So I decided to lay scales one by one, which took about 3 evenings. You may notice the scale bits are a bit off scale. They should be smaller, but I didn't mind all that much and kept on laying them. Funny how snakes get us irritated or disgusted maybe. I had goosebumps during when I checked some reference images. As for the paint, I primed it all with Vallejo black primer. It's kind of a waste of good quality paint to be applied by brush for an object this big, but I ran out of cheap black craft paint. It looks pretty cool with just black as well, but I had 3-color paint scheme in my mind for this. I started painting the handle first. Started with diluted Vallejo wood grain, then mixed chocolate brown with wood grain diluted just a bit. Then the same mixture without any water in it to bring up the wooden look. This also helps me visualize the next color choice. Then switch to orange brown, added in a bit of a specky fashion and distributed with, well, kind of dry brush to wet paint really. After that I mixed old wood color in it to give it a bit of a older or worn look. Then used old wood only to further up the age look, especially at the bottom part. Then to exaggerate this look further, I added white in this and again with a specky fashion I tried to give the edges some highlighting. To blend everything or most sections together as well as cover up some paint mistakes, I used smoke color paint, diluted it with water and applied it on all over the handle. And ran it a second time to cover the carved lines. After the handle I started painting the hilt. For this I mixed bronze paint with black. I wanted to experiment with a shining effect, so I applied the bronze itself right in the middle of it in a linear fashion. Right after the hilt, I started the painting of the snake itself. For this, I found this weird green-brownish mixture of paint in my drawer and used it as an undercoat. At this point, I wasn't sure of what tone of green I wanted the snake to be, so I kept on painting multiple coats of paints to see where this is going. I decided to play around with light green and emerald paints. Made sure to touch the paint on each scale without covering in between scales. After that, I mixed the same paints, only the green being more in the mix. Next, I used the light green by itself, making sure it wouldn't cover the entire surface of each scale to not lose the previous tone of paint, if you know what I mean. After that, I added deep yellow paint into the mixture and started dry brushing the scales. While at it, I painted the eyes of the snake with this intentionally skipping pupil details. I don't even know if what snakes have are called pupils. After that, I washed the entire snake with a dark diluted paint mixture I don't remember now. Next, I decided to apply umber wash. This gives a smoky yet glossy effect, which glossiness worked perfectly considering this is a snake. It took an entire evening for the umber wash to fully dry. Next day, I started painting the blade itself. For this, I used gunmetal color. I added black in it and painted the middle of the blade. Then dry brushed the original gunmetal color towards the middle to have a smoother, rather reflecting look. Added oily steel by the edges to improve the metallic feel further. Applied a black wash and wiped off the excess. It ended up looking okay. The blade looked just the way I wanted it to look. Old, somewhat oxidized maybe, and roughed up. Although, the handle looked maybe a bit too new and clean. I don't know, what do you think? Knowing this blade left on the surface the paint would wear off or chip away, I decided to make a very basic stand for it. For this, I used slice of a log I bought a few years ago. Found another piece of driftwood and a branch piece in my bin. Used skewers to attach them to the base. There would be so much to add on this, maybe a skull, sculpted candles and so on, but I wanted to keep it plain since it would be kept on a work desk and could be used to, I don't know, put keys or a phone in between the branches. Yet I decided to add a bit of a color to it with the flock I have. I basically glued clumps of flock randomly and called it done. So, the dagger ended up being 48 centimeters long, that is almost 19 inches for my American viewers. The base could have been decorated with much more details, I know, but I wanted it to be rather empty as I explained before. Making this decorative object gave me so many ideas for future. I'm already thinking about making at least one sword, a pair of Viking axes in the future. I know I steered away from my usual crafts, but I kind of am running out of diorama or scratch building project ideas. I always find myself making a mech or a medieval battle scene and so on. It kind of gets tiring and frustrating to make similar stuff only to be donated or thrown away. I hope you like this, and if you want me to make more videos for similar craft projects, let me know in the comments with your ideas. Subscribe to the channel if you like the content, and if you haven't yet. I'll see you all soon, and bye bye.